From gender pay gaps and barriers to leadership, to the rollback of reproductive rights and racial disparities in healthcare, the evidence is clear. Patriarchy is deeply embedded in American society. And while women, especially women of color, bear the brunt, these systems ultimately harm everyone, including men. Our next guest unpacks the origins and consequences of the gender divide in her new book, Erased: What American Patriarchy Has Hidden From Us, which is already a New York Times bestseller. Please welcome Anna Malaika Tubbs.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for being
Thank
here.
you.
I am such a fan. I loved this book. I wanted to do this segment with you. I became a fan after reading your first book, The Three Mothers, which told the stories of Louise Little, Alberta King, and Bertis Baldwin, of course, the mothers of Malcolm X, Martin Luther King Jr., and James Baldwin. How did telling those stories lead you to this book?
Yeah. The first book is about these incredible women who, although their sons are so well studied and dozens of books have been written about the men, it took until my book in 2021 for us to know that all three of the mothers did what their sons later became famous for, long before their sons were even a thought in their mind.
Yeah.
And so everybody who reads that book feels a sense of shock that we didn't already know these acts. And it's really sad, and that erasure of them is very strategic. And so I'm always asked, how is it possible that we didn't know these names, that we didn't know these stories, that we didn't know that even Malcolm X's mother was put away for 25 years of her life because she was a radical activist? And I always say, well, it's because of patriarchy.
Now, when you say patriarchy, for people that don't understand that, what do you mean?
Yeah. In this book, I wanted to really define it because I don't think we've ever been presented the full definition. And the reason that I specify American patriarchy is that I've lived all over the world. I traveled nomadically, I grew up abroad, and I've seen patriarchy operate across the whole world. And unfortunately, it is the most dominant system. But in every country, it shows up differently, depending on how the founders of that nation defined what it is to be man, to be human, to be woman. And so in the US, I'm really specifying that the system of American patriarchy was founded by white men, our founding fathers, who wanted to make sure that they had power in the nation that they had gained in the Revolutionary War, and that they intentionally were building a republic of men. And so they define men in the Constitution by those who can own land, represent themselves in business decisions, and that they can vote. And unfortunately, they don't mention women at all in the Constitution. Women are completely ignored, but in letters that they wrote to their family, to their daughters, to their wives, they define women as those that should be protected, those that need to be controlled, that they should not be politically active and they should not vote. And so there's already this problematic binary that is established by the Constitution. But it already limits us in our definition of what it means to be human in the United States. And so when I'm defining patriarchy, I'm saying it's this limited and flawed binary that, of course, also doesn't include people who were enslaved. It didn't include immigrants. It didn't include anyone who was non-binary. It didn't even include poor white people. And so, unfortunately, we're still seeing the ramifications of this system.
Yes, we are. And let me ask you this, because the maternal mortality rate in the U.S. is far higher than any other high-income nation, especially for Black women, who are 3 times more likely to die in pregnancy and childbirth than white women. How did we get there?
Yeah. Unfortunately, because of American patriarchy, you're going to see it in all of our systems, especially our healthcare system, but especially any system that's looking at the body of women. Because women were told in this definition, this early setup that I was discussing, that the only role that they could play was reproducing the power of men through children. And so men started to take control of our reproduction. And so if you look at all these other nations that we're comparing ourselves to, something like midwifery is used, if not more, just as much as obstetricians. But in the US, our process has become incredibly over-medicalized. And in the book, I identify 3 men in particular. They're the father of gynecology, the father of obstetrics, and the father of modern medicine. And I laugh about this sometimes because it is strange that we even have a father of gynecology or a father of obstetrics. It seems already ironic, and there's something wrong with that. And they all had issues with midwifery. They didn't like that they didn't have a role to play in that process.
That job was often done by women.
By women, by elders, exactly, exclusively, for many, many years. And in fact, when initially women were told to start delivering in hospitals, we started to see much higher levels of mortality. And we still see that to this day. And so this is a well-researched thing. There's already solutions in place, but it would take us admitting that American patriarchy played a role in this, that men who wanted to control processes that didn't include them played a role in this.
And that maybe women know a woman's body a little bit better than a man.
I mean, mind-blowing.
Now, we keep hearing about this crisis of young men in our country, young women outperforming young men in a variety of ways, actually. Are young men, in your view, in crisis, and who is to blame for that?
Absolutely, they are in crisis, and I think it's one of the greatest pieces of evidence that American patriarchy still exists. A lot of people would claim, well, women and girls are doing well, they're outperforming men in a lot of ways. A lot of people have asked me, you have 3 degrees, how could you claim that patriarchy still exists? Yeah. And there's a lot of different examples that we can point to, of course, the maternal mortality crisis that we discussed, but one of the primary examples that I point to is how sadly our men and boys are suffering. And that comes as a result of this limited binary that we talked about. If you're told that your only options in life are dominate or be dominated, there's a lot that you have to deny in yourself to play this domination role. You have to deny that you're connected to other people. You have to deny that you're a vulnerable person who has feelings beyond anger. You have to deny that you might want to be cared for as well, that you might want to be protected as well. And so it's really hurting all men, all boys, but also those who are supposed to be the primary beneficiaries of American patriarchy, white men. We're seeing very high rates of depression, very high rates of drug dependency. I mean, this is something that plays a role in needing to deny parts of yourself in order to have power over others, in order to dominate others. And so I would say it's one of the primary reasons why we really need to focus in on dismantling American patriarchy.
Wow. Well, in your book, you say, and I was struck by this, Trump may very well be the best personification of American patriarchy to have ever existed.
Yes.
I agree, but please explain.
Absolutely. I was not shocked at all by these election results, largely because I was writing this book for the last 3 years. And so in our household, I was, my husband was very optimistic, and I said, I'm not sure, because if what I'm saying in this book is true, he is going to win. And he is replicating all of the things that we talked about in that initial social order. If you want to maintain power in the hands of one group, if you want to make sure women are dominated and that they're back into their role of having children, if you want to make sure that immigrants are excluded, if you want Black people to have to fight for their humanity again, you replicate all of what is American patriarchy. And so Donald Trump's playbook is that. And if you map that initial social order that I'm identifying in the book to everything that he's proposing, you will no longer be surprised by executive orders that are destroying families, immigrant families in particular, or that are saying, how can we get women to have more children again? Let's pay them $5,000. The list goes on, and you can map that especially to the attack on trans people and their rights, because that is one of the most the biggest challenges to American patriarchy is to say there's something else beyond this binary.
Beyond
there's
being
something else available to us.
A man or a woman. Well, what advice do you have for women who are really trying to navigate then this society that's shaped by systems established to oppress us or even erase us?
Yeah. There's levels to it. I think on a personal level, and this is for men, women, everyone, for us to think about how are we seeing ourselves as a result of this system? Do we believe we're supposed to dominate other people? Or do we believe we are supposed to be silenced, that we are supposed to be in the background? To start asking some questions about how it's even infiltrated how we see ourselves. On the second level, it's in our relationships, in our marriages, how we're parenting our children, even in our friendships. American patriarchy is often being replicated, and we don't even realize that we're protecting it when we're telling our children, you have to be this or you have to be this, instead of asking them, who are you? And it's something that June Jordan, I quote in the book, she says that every time a child is born, the world begins again. And can we look at our children instead and say, what world has begun with you? Rather than tell them, you need to fit this nation and this world as it already is.
I love that.
Thank you.
I love that.
Thank you.
Well, Anna Malaika Tubbs, thank you for
you.
being here. You can pick up a copy of her book, Erased, What American Patriarchy Has Hidden From Us, wherever books are sold, or you can scan the QR code on your screen to order a copy. You will love this book. Thank you for watching.